Yo, what's going on, fellow rune mages? Today I have a very interesting video for you. It's actually probably the hardest I've worked in a very short video in my life. My mom would be so proud of me right now if I put this amount of work into things like school, but you know what? Sucks to suck. I'm a god Sylas player. This is where I'm putting my talents and effort. So without further ado, guys, 5 easy steps. We're going to be going over 5 steps on how to be the best Sylas you can be right now in this meta. Mindset, builds, runes. I'm gonna stop spoiling it, honestly, because it's just really great. It's really detailed. You guys are gonna love it. So the first thing before we get into even step 1 is that if you accept that Demacia is the worst and that you hate Demacia, then you can start the video and continue. If you do not agree with those, I recommend clicking off of this immediately because I do not want any Demacian scum in my channel or viewership. But without further ado, if you're still here, I love you. It took me a long time to get to this point, years of work, so hopefully if I can condense that amount of years of work to help you guys out, I'll have done my job. And I think the last step, the 5th step, is probably one that not a lot of people might agree with, but a lot of people will agree with too. So I think it's interesting and I want to hear your guys' take on it. Let me know in the comments below what you think of the last and most important step after you've watched the video. So let's get into it. So the runes for Sylas are pretty straightforward. You want to go electrocute because obviously we're trying to do the most amount of damage as possible in the least amount of time. The great thing about this build and just sudden impact in general is that sudden impact procs off of your W and your E, which is giving you extra magic penetration and lethality every 5 seconds, which is insane, with a cooldown of 4 seconds. Eyeball collection is the fastest way you are going to get 30 AP from Ghost Poro and Zombie Ward. So like I said, we want to do a lot of damage and as fast as possible. And we want to go Ravenous Hunter. Even though it is nerfed, it's still better than the other ones, to be honest. So that's what we want to go, and there's nothing, you can't go wrong with healing from your abilities, especially when they do tons of damage. Now the secondary is interesting because I like to go Mana Flow Band, as you'll see in our beginning build. This is going to help out a lot. Extra mana and just having this is extraordinary, and Gathering Storm, so we can always rely on the late game in case the early game is not going within our favor. You actually want to go +9/+9 Adaptive Force because in the early game, in the early lane stages, that extra AP will be the difference between a kill and a death, especially when you're going Electrocute and Sudden Impact. So we're not going to be going Ability Haste, and depending on the matchup, you're going to want to go Armor or Magic Resist. Step 2, lose lane. Now, I don't mean this as literal as I do mean it, because let's be real, you're going to get camped, you're going to CS poorly, and you're going to get shoved in because, well, you're a Sylas. You'll probably feed like I am here, but the thing is, I do this all the time. It's somewhat of an expectation I've built in myself, but I don't let it cloud my vision because as you'll see, as the game goes on, I come back, and I come back hard. You want to CS to the best of your ability. Stack up your tier and your mana flow bland constantly as soon as either of them are up, and that's another reason I took tier as a first item. I know I'm gonna lose lane, but I want to get Mirror Mana as a second item, and it's hard to do that unless you buy a tier as your starting item. Now, as you can see, after I feed my balls off, as long as I continue to stay within the same CS as my laner, and I'm always 1 level ahead, 1 level behind, or equal level as her, I will eventually outscale. Sylas in general, and this build specifically, was made to scale into oblivion and give your enemies false hope. I say that with the least amount of sarcasm as possible too, because League is a very mental game, and the element of surprise works insanely well. The enemies don't expect a 2 and 6 Sylas to one-shot them, but I do, and that's what makes this work so well, because it basically tricks the enemy into playing stupidly and aggressively when they shouldn't be allowed to be. This leads us to the next step, which allows us to get to this point. Itemization. Armooon is an appreciatively cheap item, which means if you try to build this early, you most likely won't have a Mirror Mana until 15 to 20 minutes, and that's literally the reason you're buying a Armooon. Armooon by itself is a garbage item. But that's where my innovation comes in. Starting a tier of Goddess will allow you to keep tempo and get a Mirror Mana instead of a Armooon as a second item around the 15-minute mark or earlier if you don't feed like me. Now, if you don't know why Mirror Mana is suddenly an amazing item for Sylas, allow me to let me learn you something. Before the change, Mirror Mana would allow attack damage users to deal more damage with basic attacks But now they've punished that incentive because it was obviously too good, and instead Muramana deals more damage with attack damage spells instead of basic attacks. This is incredible for Sylas, and Sylas alone, for many reasons. Reason number 1 is that his passive scales off attack damage. Reason number 2 is that his passive literally counts as a spell. Reason number 3 is that it's insanely cheap, as I've said. Reason number 4 is that it gives mana, which is perfect because Sylas literally is always out of mana. And reason number 5 is that it gives ability haste. There is literally no reason not to buy this item after all of the changes. After that, we're going to build into Zhonya's for the armor, for the active, and because of the stats. Zhonya's is a staple in Sylas and almost needed in every single build, so we're going to take that. After that, we're going to build a Banshee's Veil, which is incredibly good after its buff. If you don't know what the buff was, it basically went from 60 ability power to 80 ability power. So this has an amazing stat, and not only an amazing stat, but also a great passive to deal with in any case. The amazing thing about this build and playstyle is that, as you can see, we have one of everything. We are a jack of all trades. We have attack damage, so if they build magic resist, we'll still deal damage. We have ability power, so if they build armor, we'll still deal damage. And we have armor, so we're harder to kill. And we have magic resist, so we are even harder to kill. We've got a little bit of everything, and that's going to make things just that much harder for the enemy. Imagine a player, a champion, that is hard to kill and deals tons of damage. With all of these things combined, this makes late game Sylas a monster and almost impossible to lose with, which leads us to our next step. Now what? A question I get asked a lot is, okay, I'm fed, but laning phase is over. I'm strong, but what do I do now? Well, I'll tell you what to do. Don't stop. Of course, if Dragon or Baron is up, head over to the Dragon Pit, head over to the Baron Pit, assert your dominance with your alpha male shirtless Sylas magic influence, and take over vision cover, get an Oracle Lens, get pink wards, try to push the enemy out with as much vision as you can. But if that's not the case, keep farming. Apply pressure and gain as much experience and gold as you possibly can. Because remember, just because you're ahead now does not mean you should start slacking. Continue your lead by doing what you did to get there, and that's farm. Just because you're fed doesn't mean you can suddenly run it down and force fights, even though that's what I do a lot. But it's a conflict of greed and something I deal with along with many others that I'm sure can relate. I feel like I'm on top of the world, which is good. Confidence is good, but sometimes it could lead us to make pretty stupid decisions. So go to the top lane, and if it's not pushed out, push it out. Go to the bot lane, and if it's not pushed out, push it out. Literally anywhere that you can push and apply pressure, do that. Even try to counter jungle and take enemy camps if you're not an enemy jungler, or if you're not a jungler yourself. It doesn't matter. Anything that you can do to put yourself ahead and put your enemies further behind should be your exact mindset and plan. And with that exact mindset, you can see, as I am at this point, just completely carrying the game on my back. Another important thing about Sylas, well, an insanely important thing about Sylas, literally the thing that makes Sylas different from everyone else is his ultimate ability. And let me tell you, it's a lot more complicated than you thought. And I know, you already thought it was a really complicated ultimate ability, so let me make reality worse for you. You have to remember that when you steal an ultimate, you're only going to have it for 1 minute, tops. That's not a lot of time. If you're the kind of person that just steals a good ultimate whenever it's available, that's bad. Don't do that, because your enemy is going to see that and just think, okay, he has 1 minute to use it. I can easily just wait 1 minute, then jump on his punk ass and have an ulti advantage. That being said, good ultimate or bad, take it when the time is right. When Dragon's spawning in 30 seconds, take it. When Baron's spawning in 15 seconds, take it. When you know a fight is going to happen, take it. Don't just take it willy-nilly, because like I said, you're the carry of the team now. Start acting like it. Pressure is on. As you probably can't see or tell, a lot of the time, there's a lot going through my head during the game. If I want to keep my distance and deal damage from afar, I'll take an Ashe ulti. If I can't take Ashe ult, I'll take MF's ult. But if I want to run in and be the engage for my team, I'll take Xin Zhao's ulti. If Jin's ult is taken, or he's just not there, I'll take Shaco's ulti. There's a lot to Sylas, and as I just explained, a lot of different ways to perceive and play him, depending on the situation. Engage or damage from afar. It all depends. As I take the according ult, Jin Zhao in this situation, I easily take a 1v3 under the tower, and that leads us to the victory. That feels good, man. But that's not all. No, believe it or not, the most important step is the one past the victory screen, past the rift, and the one step that you can't do any of the other ones without. And that's your well-being. And I say this in the most serious way possible. Your well-being is the most important thing in the world. Whether you're rank 1 in League of Legends or an Iron Noob, your well-being outside of the game is more important than any of those regardless. Now, I know this past year has been a little rough for a lot of people, and they're feeling alone right now, but it's nice to be reminded that you're not alone and that these things are temporary. Just because you're not feeling great right now doesn't mean you might not feel a little bit better in the next day, week, or month. So seriously, be sure to take care of yourselves, guys, and be sure to keep a hopeful outlook on the future. Without anything else needing to be said, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you learned something both in the game and outside of it, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. That's going to be it from me. I'll see you next time. Peace.